Siva. Shall I begin?
Yes, please.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for being here today and for coming along to this slightly different kind of seminar. Professional Purpose is I'm going to give you a little bit of background about the program. And as Siva said, I'm going to talk about navigating through the material and particularly through the materials that are in the online modules that you guys have been linked to inside your Canvas unit course. Professional Purpose is a program that the university has had in development for a few years, but is rolling out in a fairly substantial way this year into various units across the university to support and assist you guys to think a little bit differently about your future and a little bit of kind of, I guess, a kind of tour of different ways to think about your future in practical, pragmatic actions that you can kind of take now. We have designed this program. You'll notice it's not called my graduate job or the career that I do at the end of my degree or career purpose. It's called Professional Purpose because it is about thinking about and reflecting on yourself in the future. And as I mentioned just now, taking steps to become more self-aware and work on things that are going to support and build that possible future for yourself. This will start to make sense as we move more through the material, but we always say it's not a job title, it's not a career path. These kinds of things we talk about in various ways in the employability team and department that I work in. We have a range of whole lot of different ways that we support and work with students, but lots of research and lots of feedback that we had from students in the university over the past several years indicated that people wanted to know how they could, in retrospect, once they'd graduated, they wanted to know how they could help themselves in their first year when they started studying, to think about the future and to plan for it and to do some small things to get ready. As I say, it's thinking, it's planning, it's self-reflecting. We don't want you to feel anxious about that. We don't want you to feel like you have to come up with any answers today about what your future is going to look like. We want you to just think about some of these tools and practice this kind of practical approach of breaking down your future now for yourselves. So as I say, it's a little bit conceptual, but I'm going to work through the materials and help guide you through that. And essentially there are three things that we're going to be looking at today. We're going to be looking at and thinking about the role that values play in our satisfaction in work that we might do in our lives, but kind of with a view to our professional self later on. We're going to be looking at brainstorming and coming up with ideas of ways that you can engage in things in your life right now that will sort of automatically support your future. So it's like, some career building type activities, but things that actually are personalized to you, things that will help you explore, things that will help you use a bit of kind of design thinking to kind of put some things in the category of stuff I'm interested in for my career versus stuff I'm not interested in for my career, and then kind of moving to a little bit of a plan, like you'll look at a little bit of a planning exercise to do some very sort of action-based planning that you can start to put in place now. So it's kind of got those parts to it. As I say, we'll be talking about values. We'll be definitely talking about thinking about and practicing different ways to learn about your future kind of interests, and we'll be kind of reflecting on that as we go. So the main kind of workshop element of this today is that I will be asking you guys to in the Q&A to just sometimes I'll be throwing out a question and asking you guys to brainstorm it in the Q&A with me. I'll be sometimes making suggestions of ways and content to think about. But I want you to just keep an open mind if you can, and just think about this as a set of tools to use to think about your potential future. Now, something I always say when working with a group of students who, as you guys, most of you are doing very kind of applied study. You're doing study that has a technical focus. Many of you will have an actual career in mind. Is that true? In the Q&A, or just raising your hand even, actually, if you want to just raise your hand if you have got a clear kind of goal or career direction in mind, because I'm going to talk about this a little bit as well. It's okay if you don't. Basically, there's no right answer to whether you have a clear career goal or not. Just interested if anybody in the room does feel like they're clear on something that they're interested in for future. There's no hands raised, so that's okay. I'm gonna take that as a no. Well, you're in luck, because this program is actually designed to thank you, thanks Jack, is actually designed to think about finding out what's important to you on the way to getting there, rather than necessarily needing to have a clear goal. Jack, you'll be absolutely fine, because you can use these tools to basically test out and prototype your career goal. That's the approach of the program, is to think about it as a design process, and to keep looking at it as an evolving and moving plan, rather than something rigid. So I would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people, past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge that we're meeting on these lands today, online, most of us, and to pay my respects to all Indigenous peoples in the room today, and also who have spent time on these lands with us. So, as I said, please do share in Q&A. Please contribute and think about this stuff as we move through it. What we've got here is saying what you've already done. This is for any of you who've already been into the modules to have a look at them. Just out of interest, has anybody gone in and already had a look at the online modules, the professional purpose modules? Anyone? You can raise your hand just for that one. Yep. Thank you, Kari. Excellent. A couple of others, few others. Okay, good. They've disappeared. That's fine. Thank you for doing that already. For any of you who have had a look at this already, you'll be slightly more familiar with this. As Siva mentioned, I'll also be talking about how to move through it for those who haven't, so that's absolutely fine. In terms of what the modules will ask you to have a look at, it will be a sort of an initial kind of what we call a wellness quiz to help you think about some of the things that you might want to strengthen. When we talk about strengths in career contexts, we're talking about sort of interpersonal aspects of yourself. We're talking about your general kind of feelings of well-being in the world, and whether you're kind of feeling in a good place, basically to move forward and think about your plans and kind of keep everything balanced in your life. So that's a quick little kind of scale that will ask you to kind of respond to that. You'll also be doing a little quick quiz called the Claremont Purpose Scale, and the Claremont Purpose Scale is also similarly going to quiz you and give you some feedback about how prepared you feel for your future, how ready you are to start making changes, how ready you are to start actioning and experimenting and exploring your future. And these are both kind of confidential quizzes. I want you all to know that none of the materials that you type into or respond to inside the actual Canvas course are recorded in there. We can't see your responses. The only thing that we will see is at the very end there's a quick 2-question evaluation which will deliver to us, where we ask you to just answer 2 questions for feedback. So apart from the tiny bit of feedback at the end that we ask for about your experiences, everything that you put into the system is confidential, but it will ask you to download results. So my top tip is that any time that the system says please download and keep these, or please keep a copy, PDF for copy, whatever it might be, make sure that you do that. because any of the content that you gather as you go is the content that you're going to be able to then reflect on, and reflecting on what you've found out about yourself and what you've learnt in this is basically the kind of the key takeaway, and that's how that will kind of that's how that will connect into your assessment, which Stephen will talk about a little bit at the end. A list of your top 5 values. So the first part of the system will also ask you to brainstorm and list out your top 5 values. So I'm going to talk about values in a minute and how they work in this kind of context, but I would love you guys right now, for probably many of you who haven't been able to have a look at the modules yet, to just start jotting down right now as I'm speaking values that are important to you, because we're going to talk a little bit about that in a moment. That's the kind of content of things that the system will ask you to generate. And basically that's the material that you'll be working with in thinking about it and in creating some reflective content that describes what you learned out of this process. The other thing that it'll ask you to do is to make a list of 5 things that you want to gain from spending time, basically your time at university. And I'll be also asking you to brainstorm on that today too in preparation for that. Please jump in and comment in Q&A when I'm asking you to kind of make suggestions or come up with ideas, and please also feel free to ask questions as we go and we will answer those. So building connections and supporting other students taking the professional purpose journey is just a general principle we ask you to think about. So you may or may not talk about this content with others after you had today's seminar and after you've been thinking about it. What we want you to do is bring a general sense of connecting with others and supporting others through your time at university, both to assist yourself with your preparation towards your post-university life, and also because other people will support and assist you. So I guess the general kind of takeaway there is thinking about connections, thinking about how we assist each other when we're building any part of our life, but when we're building something like a career following university. Also, university itself is a time of great transition. So obviously we want you guys to kind of be aware of and think about, being a good kind of peer to each other, being a good citizen. Many of you will be already doing this. As we've returned to universities, or as you guys have started university, having returned from very online worlds, that kind of care and support for each other is fairly important. What we're going to be doing is also thinking about how you generate multiple possibilities for your own experience while you're at university, because this is what will support a general sense of your potential future, your potential interests areas to work in, things that you might do towards that. This design thinking approach for career is a pretty it's been around for a few years now, but what we're asking you to do essentially today is think beyond only linear approaches to career. So many times when we're presenting this content, people will say, how is it that we're thinking about this in first year? Why are we thinking about this in first year? And, I don't need to worry about my career until later on. There's plenty of evidence that any small things that you can do early on as part of a long-term exploration towards career can benefit you to make decisions along the way. So generating multiple possibilities for how to get involved in things now gives you information about yourself. Everything we're suggesting is about giving you kind of extra data, I guess, on yourself and who you might be on the way to becoming professionally. And then we will also, as I said, look at the creating of an action plan. I'm going to skip through this. Sorry about the sound. Just skip through that quickly because there's not enough time for that. But that was just an icebreaker exercise, and there's quite a lot of us in the room, so we won't do the icebreaker. We'll just move through that. Moving to the next slide. Apologies for this. I had meant to move this along So thinking about how we get unstuck in life is another way of approaching this. Getting unstuck in life is a kind of general principle that is behind design thinking for career. And design thinking for career is about breaking open the idea that you have to proceed in a straight line from a university degree straight into a job with no kind of information about how you get from one to the other. So I'm going to, getting unstuck is a core part of that. I'm going to talk about that more a little bit in a minute. I'm just going to see if I can get this video to work okay. Cross fingers for me, everybody, because I just want you to watch this short video featuring a Swinburne student and a particular situation that they were in and that they had to get themselves unstuck from, relating to their life. And while we're watching this, I want you to have a think about what types of values you think were involved here in this student's decision making. What values guided him? So just have a think about that. It just goes for a couple of minutes. Just sorry, back to that slide. So there's quite a bit in that story. The reason that we use stories like that occasionally in this program is just to kind of illustrate what we're talking about. That, you know, basically when people are at a crossroads because something hasn't gone to plan, basically what happens next is they need to take some action. Taking action is what kind of gets people unstuck from that unexpected situation. And one of the things that decades of research has shown is that most people's careers don't unfold the way they expect. And I always be careful to say to people, that sounds like I'm giving you bad news, that you're unfold the way that you expect, but it's actually just the reality of how most people's work unfolds. Occasionally you meet someone, some of you guys will have known somebody who's had a career that's unfolded exactly the way they wanted. It's been exactly how they planned, and it's come to the plan, and nothing's kind of, you know, derailed that plan. But often when we make plans, as with that Joey example, unexpected things occur. And the reason unexpected things occur is because none of us are 100% in control of the context, you know, that we live in. We can't anticipate something like COVID happening. Joey was expecting, you know, good things to come for his football career as it was unfolding, and things changed quite quickly. So just a quick, just in the Q&A, just quickly, what are some of the values that might come to mind about how he made his decision? Where was he operating from when he was deciding? Like, some of the things that come to my mind is that he really demonstrated that he was courageous. That's a value, courage. He demonstrated dedication. He was like, I want to get my life on track. I want to be dedicated, and I want to make a decision and make it come true. Family. was really important to him. He mentioned that family was really important. He wanted to succeed for his family and with his family. Are there any other kind of values that you've noticed about that, or any other comments of kind of, you know, how he got unstuck? Any thoughts, anybody? It's okay if there's not. I'll keep moving through. Nope,
You guys can put it on chat, please, on the Q&A.
Yes, I just clicked open the Q&A and I don't know if it's refreshing for me.
Yeah, that is a new post now.
Oh, is there? Okay, let me just go up. Refreshing from the top, isn't it?
Yeah, from the top.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there we go. New posts. Okay. I'm sorry, everybody. Thank you very much, Kari. Focused on what he could do for himself. And thank you, Siva, for helping me with that tech issue, which wasn't really an issue. Yeah, he was focused on what he could do for himself. He was, rather than remaining stuck and feeling like this had happened to him, he thought about how he could work with what had happened. Persistence is excellent, Alexander. I love that too. Both of those, focus on what he could do and persistence, are both really good examples of that. And, you know, there was a lot, as I say, in that story, and you can see that he was able to move forward and he was pretty happy about his new plan. It doesn't mean that we're not disappointed when things occur that are not to plan, but taking this approach and anticipating that things will change allows us to kind of feel less kind of, like it's the end of the world when things do change, because in this process we're talking about, change is expected and we're ready for it when it comes. I love that, Sanyam, putting in the work required. Exactly right. So that's that's like hard work, is that, you know, would be that value, you know, the importance of hard work and doing what's needed. So thank you for those suggestions, guys. That's excellent. And I'll go into our next slide now. So thinking about that Joey example and thinking about yourselves, I want you to kind of like just spend a little couple more minutes. You know, I said a few minutes ago to start thinking about your values. And while you're now thinking about them more for a couple more minutes, just for yourselves, you don't need to share them in the Q&A, but just jotting down 2, 3, 4 values, 5 if you can think of them, that are important for you. You'll be able to use these when you're working through your modules. If you're getting stuck, that's okay. I'm just going to keep talking through this while you're jotting them down, but I want you to think about how values can allow you to draw on your strengths, and they can also allow you to allow sort of your own interests and what's important to you to start to come to the surface. So you can kind of see how the values helped him get unstuck, but also at the same time he was following his values to think about what else might I do. Values can actually help us with decision making in career contexts, because it can be as simple as I have this job I can choose from, or I have that job I can choose from, and actually what speaks to me because it aligns with what's important to me. When people work with things that don't align in jobs or situations that don't really align with their values, it can absolutely, make you unhappy. I mean, to make it really kind of simple, it can just make you unhappy. I was just talking to someone the other day who was saying that they, when they first were a new graduate, they were working in a job that was a sales role. It was in a different field to what we're talking about today, but it was in a sales role, and the sales particular sales job was outward sales, looking for people to buy a particular product who actually couldn't afford to buy that product. So it was targeting people who were vulnerable, and it was targeting people who didn't have the means to buy that product. The company that this person worked for knew that the customers didn't have the money, but they were asking them to purchase anyway. And the person that was doing this sales job, it didn't align with their values. That was somebody who really cared about people not being exploited, cared about fairness, cared about ethical work. So you can see how that's like a disconnect there. When we're doing work that disconnects with what's important to who we are as people, it really can come unstuck for us. So I hope that while I've been talking, you've been able to kind of think about those a little bit, and maybe kind of jot down a few, because that's kind of, you know, what you'll be using as part of your reflective process, and it will also help inform the next kind of exercises that we're about to do. Thinking about values can take a little bit of time. We've got this slide here with a few on there, and I'd encourage you to have a look back at the slides when you're working through the materials too, because if you're getting stuck, you can actually use the little word cloud here to kind of generate ideas about that. Another kind of short kind of example about values would be a time that I had to, it's actually also a sales example, but there was a time where I worked in recruitment myself early in my career, where I had I worked for a small company, and we believed in generating long-term relationships with our customers, and we looked after our customers, and we tried to aim for the long game. We made sure that we had repeat customers, and we made sure that we kept those clients for years. And then when I moved out of that role into another role, I moved into a large company where we were also supplying recruitment services. We were recruiting staff on behalf of companies, but there were very large sales targets, and there were also there was a lot of churn through clients, that we moved through clients quickly. Clients didn't come back to us. The general idea was that was fine. That was the business model, and it was the business model, but it didn't align with my values, because I believed in treating my clients well, so that they would come back to me for repeat service. So that's just that's a kind of a consulting example, because it just comes to mind, and because it's part of my history. My value is about respecting people, that relates to that, and generating long-term relationships with people in a professional setting. So you can see how that second job, I didn't stay very long, because it just did not feel okay. It didn't feel okay, and therefore it was really hard to do the work. So thinking about values, and thinking about how we think about our future, we kind of would like you to keep in mind this idea that we can also get unstuck by reframing our thinking a little bit. We've got this kind of slide here that has what we're calling an unhelpful belief, or a dysfunctional belief on the left, which is, I have to design, I have to create, figure out my best possible life, and I have to make a plan, and then I have to achieve it, execute it. This is a belief that many people have, that there's only one way to get to their career, and that's to just work hard, try to do what they think are all the right things, make a plan, and then make that plan come true. We've already seen from the video example that you can make an excellent plan, and it can look like it's working, and then context, the world, the situations around us, can actually cause that to change. Things out of our control can cause things to change. Unexpected events. So if you're thinking in that kind of way, that you need to make the plan come true, it can, as I said before, really derail you. So what we're asking you to do in this process of designing your future, rather than just simply planning it, is to think about something closer to what we've got on the right. So it's a more kind of expansive, a more kind of flexible mindset. It's what we call a growth mindset, and it says in that mindset, same situation, there are multiple great lives that I could live. There are multiple opportunities. I get to choose. I get to build my way forward to the next part of my life. So rather than seeing life as one giant, great, big, expansive time, it sees any time that you're in your life as being at a type of a set of choices, and that there will be multiple different choices you can make, and that there'll be multiple different jobs you can do, multiple different potential lives that you might lead, depending on the choices you make, and that is kind of always true, that there's not one single life that has to unfold exactly as someone imagines it, but that there's always multiple possibilities. So that becomes really, really true right now. And I guess I would like you to think about the example of COVID. I mean, I'm sure you're tired of thinking about the example of COVID in class, but thinking about the example of COVID, many people, billions of people in the world were on the threshold of something at the time that COVID became a pandemic. So at that moment, people would have been about to start jobs, they would have been about to start families, they would have been about to start university or other study, they might have been about to move to another country or another location. They were about to start their businesses, the thing that they'd waited years to do, they were about to do, and life and circumstance changed that. So if in that moment a person stays with a fixed mindset, which says, I don't get to do my plan now, I don't get to do my thing, it's pretty distressing. If the person's able to reframe that into a growth mindset, saying, something else will be possible now, and now I'm going to regroup with this new situation, new set of information, and new circumstance, and I'm going to work from here, and I'm going to brainstorm, generate ideas, and design a solution out from that. You can see that that is going to move the person towards action, probably make you feel better. That's the idea, is to make you feel like, sure, something out of control has happened, but now I can, what is within my control? And many of us, just to sort of finish that COVID example, many of us will have encountered people through that time who took the opportunity to do the thing that they had never had the chance to do. So after people recovered from the shock, and I'm not making light of the fact that many people lost their businesses, lost their income, lost their careers. It has been a really difficult and challenging time for so many people in so many ways. So I'm not saying it's all okay, but I am saying that any of those people who were able to reframe the situation and start generating ideas for what now, were more likely to move through that with less of a sort of traumatic feeling and more into something else for now that would solve their immediate problems. Literally people taking jobs in a field they'd never taken before in order to pay the rent, in order to eat, in order to survive. And sometimes finding that they really enjoyed that work, or finding that it opened up a whole new pathway to them that they hadn't expected. So I guess that's what I want to emphasize, is not for you to think disasters are going to happen all the time, but for you to think that there is always a way through, and some of these thinking and these exercises can help you to move through those and help with that potential kind of stuck or worried feelings. So another kind of little brainstorming exercise now that I would like you guys to have a go at is to think about what you might like to do right now, as in this year, in your life, to maximize the possibilities of your lives right now. It's a pretty big statement, but this is another part that the modules will lead you through and ask you to generate ideas on. Because this is, again, I mentioned at the start that many people had, when we surveyed graduate students, graduates of the university who'd been students of the university a few years ago, there was a large-scale study done. They were asked what they wished they had done while they were at uni, or what they wished they'd known, in first year that they knew now. And one of the major things was people saying, I wish I'd actually got more involved. Now, I would put a caveat on this and say, we understand that when we're saying to you, get involved at university, you'll have part-time jobs, you'll have other work, you'll have responsibilities, people and family in your lives, you'll have things, you have full lives. I'm not suggesting that you all have heaps of giant gaps in your week schedule to put heaps of different things in, but I am trying to convey to you that this piece of information that the surveyed graduates told us is that later they realised that there were lots of things going on in university that could have and would have helped them get more prepared for their life outside later, after university, and that also would have actually just made it a more engaged and a more enjoyable experience, because some of this stuff in professional purpose is about you just having a richer life rather than you necessarily finding answers all the time. So thinking about that, what I'd like you just to do for a couple of minutes now, and I'll kind of keep talking through it to try to give you some ideas, and so that it's not too arduous for you. But what I want you to do now is generate and think about and write a little kind of, just even write some notes for yourself now, and this is what the modules will ask you to do also, about the ways you could really maximise what's available to you now at university. So the kinds of things we're talking about, as I say, while you jot down ideas, I'll talk through some ideas too, that there are kind of, practical things that you can get involved in that help you with your studies directly, and these will be things you have heard of, here and there this year already, but there are programs that you can get involved in to help with study skills at the library and out of the learning skills team. There are clubs and societies that you could think about joining as a member. There are other kinds of short-term activities that might be involved around the uni, short-term programs that look really interesting. Sometimes there are entrepreneurship type programs you can get involved in. Some of these things you'll find out about in class. Some of these things are things that you should definitely have a very good look at the Swinburne website for, if you haven't already. And in fact, what I would say to anybody now who's listening to me talk about this and saying, what do you mean things that you need to get involved in? I would definitely recommend just clicking open another tab and having a look at the student pages to browse around the kinds of things that might be involved, that might be available for you to get involved in right now. Some of the things also, just to kind of extend that a little bit more, can be very kind of career oriented if you are interested in doing that now. And when we move to the next kind of planning exercise in a moment, you'll see how that could fit in. And by that, I mean that, for example, my department, the employability department, is a giant department, but we have, as I mentioned at the start, we have lots of different ways that we can help you, but you might choose to think about doing an internship, and maybe even in addition to what's required in order to get registered in your field, to get professional registration. So it might be that you voluntarily do some extra internships. It might be that you think about going on a study exchange to another country and doing part of your degree overseas. It might be that you read about a mentoring program and that you think, well, if I got a mentor, it'd be a nice kind of neat way to find out more about entering this particular field that I might be interested in working in. So just as I say, as I'm talking, hopefully you're jotting down some answers, thinking about the kinds of things that might be interesting to you right now, and also might help you to start answering some kind of questions that you might have about yourself and how you're going. We understand that it's a lot because you've got study, you've got your outside parts of your life, but in order to keep balance and in order to keep learning, adding these things in from time to time are the kinds of things that our graduates who were surveyed said. So that they were kind of like some of them really simple things, like I wish I'd gone to a session on how to write better assignments so I could have been more efficient in getting my assignments done and had more time for fun. Or it could be that the person's like, later I found out that internships could have helped me when I was applying for my graduate job, or whatever it might be. I'm just saying internships in a really loose way because some of those are compulsory depending on your study. So there are a number of things that you could draw upon that help answer questions you have for yourself about yourself. I've come across students over the years who've found public speaking or speaking, general kind of communication stuff to be quite challenging, who've done the slightly scary thing and maybe joined a public speaking club or been involved in a public speaking competition so that they could test out that fear a little bit and kind of sharpen up those skills. Acquiring skills means you don't need to kind of worry about them as much, but it also means you're building this overall sense of who you are and what you would bring in future to a potential employer or to your own business or to other kinds of activities that you might be involved in. So thinking about what you're interested in, thinking about what you'd like to kind of tick off and learn about, like you're like, I've always wanted to know this, but I haven't done it. And, you know, one of the sessions that I was in recently with students had some students saying, actually two students both said that their main interest right now in first year was to actually get to know some other students a bit better, that it had been hard to meet people. Actually, this is back in first semester where things were a little bit, in their programs, things were a little bit still quite online, and they continue to be in various ways. So their number one thing was, I want to meet more people in order to get the best out of university. I want to know some other students a bit better, and I want to start kind of building my kind of friendship group at university. So that was their kind of like goal, and then they were like brainstorming the ways that they might, what they might join or do first in order to try to build that. So I'm not going to ask you how it was. I'm just going to move through. But as I say, hopefully you jotted some things down. We've come to the final kind of activity piece, and this is pretty important because this is where we start to. And again, your modules will move you through this, but I really want you to refer back to these slides after today and really spend some extra time on this after we've looked at it today, because this is where you take what we've thought about and what we've kind of guided you through into action. So the commitment and action plan, it comes from basically best practice in kind of well-being research at the moment, about how people can both get unstuck and get things happening in their lives. So getting unstuck, as we've talked a few times about, but also building your knowledge about something, but also starting to test out some ideas you have about your future, can all be addressed by looking at this particular exercise a little bit in detail. So we have this basically action planning kind of model where we're looking at really just identifying a goal. And when I say a goal here, I don't mean it has to be, it shouldn't really be like the goal is just, you know, I want to have a job at the end of uni. It could be, but it might be a goal like I just mentioned, a smaller goal like I just mentioned, the two students who I've worked with who said, I want to make more friends at university. So it's about thinking about the goal. It's about thinking about the basically the thing that you can do, the thing that you can start to action with that, the values that kind of align with that support that goal, and then thinking about one action that you can take in the next few days to actually begin that. Has anybody come across this style of planning before? You can just put your hand up if you have. It's pretty simple, and it looks, it's deceptively simple because it sounds almost like it wouldn't work. But it works because it is simple and because it's about identifying something that's the smallest possible action you can take towards that goal in the next few days. There's lots of research being done on people's behaviour when they're using this kind of planning, and basically what happens is when people are able to first identify the goal, and second know why that goal is important to them, so these kind of two pieces, you know, join together quite strongly, and then there's a way to start doing it in the next couple of days, few days. Once people have done those three things, and once they've done that first action, other actions come from it. You've broken it down to its smallest possible step. You're more likely to do it. You should make it the smallest step you can, because then you are going to do it, and then there's more likelihood that you're going to continue on from that. You sort of repeat the process, so you'd add in another action from that following on. So once you've done the first thing, you'd decide on a second step, a second action, and then so on and so on. You keep checking around, and this is something that I'm just proposing to you as a model, and something that that you'll think about for doing this work. You keep kind of moving through this as an iterative cyclical process, but for the assessment you're kind of is that right, Siva? For the assessment you're working on the one?
I think this is not part of the unit assessment, but
it isn't. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of another unit. I'm very sorry, everybody. Ignore me. I apologise for that, Siva. And Edward, I'm sorry. I just had a brain meltdown there for a second. So just for your own purposes and as part of this process of working with these tools, which you kind of need to do to kind of, complete those stage 1 modules, which we're getting you to look at, you are just completing this small action plan. So the idea is that you think about a goal that has come to mind when you've been reflecting on your values, when you've been reflecting on the activities that you would like to get involved with while you're at university, and then you think of the first possible step. So for one of those students whose goal was to become more socially kind of connected at university, that was his goal. The reason that was important to him, the value that related to, was he feels like having connections is part of who he is. He's a person who likes to have friends, likes to do things with people, likes to experience things with people. So social, being social is kind of his value, and doing things with others. And then, action planning was that he then had a look at some of the clubs and societies that were listed on the Swinburne website in order to find something that was interesting, and literally got in touch with the president of a club would get in touch with the president of a club to say, I'm interested in coming and having a chat with you guys, or maybe joining in an activity. So that was doable within a couple of days, and you can see how then once that's done, it's done. And then from there, you can see how what flows on from that is going along to a meeting or a meetup, and then probably making friends. Like, it sounds like a really strange thing to plan to make friends, but it doesn't have to be that particular goal, of course. It has to be something that's meaningful to you, and something that's meaningful to you relating to your time at university and what you need in your life now to start thinking about and trying out and expanding on towards your future. So there's a sort of final kind of little kind of, I guess, addendum to that, which again is like thinking about how you do this in the context of other people. So thinking about design and how it works in engineering, in manufacturing, in business kind of settings. Design is usually done by a team of people. Certainly people will work solo as a designer, but teamwork and working with others is what creates and oils the machine of design. And so thinking about you creating and designing out this potential future for yourself is about thinking about how you do this with other people. So again, we'd say the kind of, fixed belief would be that because it's my life, I have to make it all okay. I have to decide everything myself, and I have to know exactly how to get a job, and I have to go and get it, and it's all on me. And a reframe is thinking about doing this in conjunction with other people. You learn from each other, your peers at university, about how this unfolds. You learn from each other when you're involved in things like internships or other kind of experiences. You learn from each other while you're studying. You support each other at the end when you're learning about how to apply for some of those graduate roles, or work in the startup that you've got in mind, or whatever it might be. So thinking about doing this in conjunction with other people is really important. And we call it here building a team. We don't mean you actually have to build a team of people to work on your career, but it's kind of a way of saying, think about the people around you who are going to support you along the way. So think about whether it is, who's kind of on your side. Is it friends who are studying the same thing as you, or is it friends who are at uni studying other things, but you guys are talking about study techniques or whatever? Is it your family who are really supportive of you while you're kind of adjusting to uni life? Is it your mum's friend who works in a job that you're really interested in and you might want to find out more about later, mentor type figures, others that you can learn from? Is it lecturers? Is it other support people in the university, such as myself? Think about who are the people who are going to support you along the way, and just sort of jot down some ideas around that. And that's, that will be also something that the modules will ask you to think about. So thinking about those people in your life who can support you, and thinking about adding to those people too. So seeking out people who can answer questions that come up to you when you're thinking about your future, when you're wondering about types of careers or work, so that you can seek advice and so that you can draw on other people's expertise, and so that you can be part of networks. And so that you can transition into work and career, into the next part of your life after university. So that pretty much concludes our slides. I'll just quickly say, as a housekeeping thing, before handing back over to Siva, any questions that come up, that when you have completed the little exercises in the modules, it will give you this page where it says Professional Purpose Program, end of stage 1. And so that is where, as I mentioned, we do ask you to answer 2 only feedback questions, just to tell us about your experiences and about anything that you would like to see improved on those. So very short feedback, but really important to us. And it also indicates that you've completed that work, which is important for your lecturers, so that they know that you've been able to go in and do that. And just also tiny little bit of housekeeping, that if you do have any problems accessing the modules, you can always email me at this professional purpose email, and I can help you out with any issues if you're having trouble getting into the modules or similar. So I've taken us almost right to time. Stephen, did you have things you want to jump in with at this point?
Fantastic, Melinda. I think it's good that you've been giving a lot of information. I received an email when the session is going on. One student from second year was asking about he didn't have an access, so literally replied to him to contact yourself to get access. So so now we got the information. The professional purpose at swin.edu.au.
Yes, that's right. Yes. Okay. So I'll add that student in and respond. And anybody else who's here or listening to the recording, if you are finding you don't have access, it's a course that sits on your Canvas dashboard, and students are automatically added to that course when you enroll. But occasionally there's a technical glitch, and so occasionally you'll find you don't have it there. So if you don't, I can absolutely add you in.
So I think, Melinda, to be clear for them, some of those students in this unit who might already did the first part of the stage 1, if they did a unit before, ENG 10001, Humanitarian, COS 10026, Inquiry Project, or ICT 10022. So I think those students, if they are here in this unit, they already, some of them completed their first part of the stage 1.
Yeah, that's right. And thank you for mentioning that. I actually completely forgot to mention that. So yes, I hope I haven't caused confusion. So yes, certainly some of you will have done that in first semester. And in fact, today's seminar provides you with the second half of professional purpose. So, which is happy news for those students. So, yeah, in fact, that means that you have completed, been able to complete that already. So, the program is those two parts: the online modules and what you've listened to and learnt about today.
Yeah, good. Any questions, guys? Please put it on Q&A.
And if you think of questions too afterwards, you can certainly email too.
Yeah, I think just want to share the screen from my side if it's okay, please.
Yes, please go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, can you see my screen?
It's just coming to me. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So to all the students here, this is it's not a part of assessment in this unit, but it really helps you in your Swinburne professional program, purpose program, towards your 4-year degree. So when you see this page on the canvas in assignments, which is a 0 credit point, you can click this link and it takes you to this canvas, another canvas page. If you have an access, it will take you to this page straight away. Am I right, Melinda?
Yes, that's exactly right. Yes.
Yeah. And then you have to go through the modules from stage 1. We ask the professional purpose team, they ask you to complete until here, activity 4 completed.
Yes.
Am I right?
That's right. That's right. Yep. So that's exactly right. So you'll see, and you'll know that you've gone too far if it says stage 2. We're not doing stage 2. So after that part that you scroll to see where it starts with stage 2. So definitely not stage 2.
I think some of the students, if they took this before in another unit, they might be hopefully completed the activity 2 completed, and
Yes.
they should start working on the second part of this module and complete the activity 4.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's right. So yeah, that will depend on where people have got up to. That's exactly right.
Yeah. And I hear that, Melinda, if those students are new, it takes around to do this stage 1 activity 2 and activity 4, it takes around 1 hour 30 minutes only to do this activity.
Yes, at maximum, I would say. Some students find it takes only 1 hour. It really depends on how long you think about each of those things. And when if you are working through it from the beginning, you'll see that some of the content's a bit familiar from what we've been through today. And if you've taken notes as we've been going, like if you've made those jotted down ideas at those moments where I suggested now think of, write a few values or whatever, it might be quicker because you've kind of thought about it while we've been working on it today.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. I thought maybe I will confirm with you for others.
Yes. Thank you for that. Thank you for that recap. And I apologise for confusing people halfway about talking about an assessment. That's week 9 brain, I'm afraid.
No, you're okay. No problem. Okay. Any other questions, guys, to Melinda in regards to professional purpose program? I think otherwise, quite, yeah. But, but I think it was a lot of information you have gave us. For an hour, nearly you were take us to last 55 minutes. It's a lot of information to gather. It's really wonderful. Yeah. And thank you, Melinda. Thank you very much for your time and support. This is recorded already, so I will put it on the Canvas Week 9 module for those who wants to listen again, watch it and take it from there. It will be useful, definitely.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you all for having me and going through those kinds of ideas with me. It's really great to have been here.
Yeah, wonderful. So, shall we end the session, please?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Melinda.
Thank
you all.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.